Welcome to the story of a young man who plays tennis with the fire of a champion and the heart of a dreamer. A player who represents not just the future of tennis, but its rebirth. From the sunlit streets of El Palmar, Spain, to the grandest stages in the world, Carlos Alcaraz has become the living embodiment of joy, fearlessness, and pure love for the game. This isn't just about trophies or titles. It's about energy, spirit, and the unshakable belief that greatness can come from anywhere. This is the story of Carlos Alcaraz, the Smiling Storm. There are athletes who redefine sports, and then there are those who revive its soul. Carlos Alcaraz belongs to the second kind. Born on May 5, 2003, in the quiet town of El Palmar in Murcia, Spain, his journey didn't begin with grandeur or spotlight. It began on simple clay courts, surrounded by family and driven by passion. His father, Carlos Alcaraz Sr., was himself a tennis enthusiast and the director of a local tennis academy. It was there, amid dusty courts and echoes of bouncing balls, that a young Carlos first picked up a racket. No one could have known that those first swings would one day change the rhythm of world tennis. From a young age, Alcaraz showed something different. Not just skill, but an aura. He was quick, energetic, and fearless. He played like someone who saw the game as an adventure. His father nurtured that passion, ensuring that Carlos grew up understanding not just technique, but respect for opponents, for the sport, and for himself. His mother, Virginia, kept him grounded, making sure that fame and ambition never stole his joy. It wasn't long before word spread through Spain's tennis community. There was a prodigy in El Palmar. As a child, Carlos had a competitive fire that startled older players. He wasn't intimidated by power or reputation. What mattered to him was the point in front of him, that single moment of challenge. That mindset, the ability to focus on now rather than next, would later become one of his greatest strengths. By the time he was 15, Alcaraz was competing in futures tournaments, facing professionals nearly twice his age. It didn't matter. His power, his speed, and his creativity made him stand out. But his hunger, his desire to win every point as if it were the last, was what made coaches pay attention. He played tennis not as a science, but as art, painting with drop shots, daring passing winners, and a grin that said, "I'm having fun." The defining chapter of his early career began when he started working with Juan Carlos Ferrero, a former world number one, Roland Garros champion, and one of the most respected minds in tennis. Ferrero saw something in Alcaraz that reminded him of his own prime. Discipline mixed with emotion, intensity guided by purpose. But more importantly, he saw a young man who loved tennis deeply, not for fame, not for money, but for the feeling of competing. Together, they built a bond that became a foundation for greatness. Under Ferrero's mentorship, Alcaraz transformed. His body became stronger, his shot selection sharper, and his mindset more mature. He began to understand the rhythm of professional tennis, the patience, the mental strength, the importance of staying present through highs and lows. Ferrero didn't just teach him how to win, he taught him how to grow. And Carlos listened, absorbing every lesson with gratitude and humility. Then came 2021, the year the world truly noticed. Alcaraz started climbing the rankings rapidly, defeating seasoned veterans with the confidence of a player who didn't care about names or reputations. His fearless tennis became a trademark. He played with abandon, but also with control. By the end of that year, the whispers had turned into declarations. The next great player had arrived. But it was 2022 that changed everything. Alcaraz began the season as a promising youngster and ended it as the youngest world number one in the history of men's tennis. He won 5 titles, including the Miami Open, Madrid Open, and the US Open, where he captured his first Grand Slam title after a series of breathtaking 5-set battles. Those matches weren't just about athletic endurance. They were a showcase of heart. Each point was a duel, each game a lesson in willpower. And through it all, Carlos smiled, a reflection of the joy that drives him even in the hardest moments. When he defeated Casper Ruud in the 2022 US Open final, he didn't roar in arrogance. He laughed in disbelief, knelt in gratitude, and embraced his coach in tears. The boy from El Palmar had conquered the biggest stage in the world. His win wasn't just for himself. It was for his family, his hometown, and for every young dreamer who dares to believe. And yet, the true test of greatness came a year later. In 2023, Alcaraz faced the living legend Novak Djokovic, the man who had dominated the sport for 2 decades, in the Wimbledon final. The match was an instant classic, a 5-set epic that swung back and forth like a pendulum between experience and youth. Djokovic was chasing more history. Alcaraz was chasing validation. After nearly 5 hours of breathtaking rallies and mental duels, the young Spaniard emerged victorious. As he dropped to the grass in tears, the crowd erupted in awe. That moment wasn't just a victory, it was a coronation. Alcaraz had proved that he wasn't just part of tennis's future, he was shaping its present. And what made it even more remarkable was his attitude after the win. He didn't boast or gloat. He praised Djokovic, thanked the crowd, and smiled like the kid who still couldn't believe he was living his dream. What sets Alcaraz apart isn't just his talent, but his spirit. He plays tennis with an emotional honesty that's rare. He celebrates with joy, shows frustration openly, and respects every opponent. There's no pretense in his demeanor, just authenticity. He embodies the idea that sport, at its purest, is about connection, between player and crowd, between effort and outcome, between dream and reality. Technically, his game is a masterclass in balance. He possesses the explosive athleticism of Nadal, the creativity of Federer, and the intelligence of Djokovic. Yet he blends them in a way that feels entirely his own. His forehand can dominate rallies. His backhand can absorb pressure. He's quick, fluid, and courageous at the net. And then there's the drop shot, his signature move, the one that's both weapon and message. In a world obsessed with power, finesse still wins hearts. But beneath the talent lies something deeper, perspective. Alcaraz has always spoken about enjoying the journey rather than obsessing over the destination. He understands that in a career as demanding as tennis, mental balance matters as much as physical strength. He laughs off mistakes, embraces challenges, and stays grounded in gratitude. That mental maturity, at such a young age, is what keeps him steady amid the chaos of fame. Away from the court, Carlos remains refreshingly humble. Despite global recognition, sponsorships, and media attention, he often returns to El Palmar to reconnect with his roots. He visits the same courts where his father taught him, plays with local kids, and thanks the people who helped shape him. His humility isn't a performance. It's a reflection of who he truly is. For Spanish tennis, he is both successor and pioneer. Following in the footsteps of Rafael Nadal, Alcaraz carries the weight of expectation with grace. But he's not trying to be the next Nadal, he's simply being Carlos. And that authenticity, that refusal to imitate, has endeared him to fans worldwide. He's not just another champion, he's a reminder of what sports can be when played with soul. Every time Alcaraz steps onto a court, there's a spark, a sense that something magical might happen. It could be a ridiculous passing shot, a jaw-dropping lob, or a rally so long that it turns into art. But beyond the spectacle, it's the emotion he brings that makes people care. His smile after a hard-fought point, his laughter between sets, his gestures of respect, they remind us that greatness can coexist with kindness. And though his career is still young, his impact is already enormous. He has inspired a new generation of tennis players, kids who now dream not just of winning, but of loving the game the way he does. His presence has revitalized the sport's energy, bringing back the excitement that sometimes fades in eras of dominance. With Alcaraz, every match feels unpredictable, alive, and human. The road ahead will not be easy. Injuries will come, rivals will rise, and the demands of being a global icon will grow heavier. But if there's one thing Alcaraz has already proven, it's that he doesn't shy away from challenges. He runs toward them. His foundation of hard work, family, and faith in his purpose will continue to guide him. And whether he wins 10 Grand Slams or 30, his true legacy will be the joy he brings to every court he steps on. Closing script. In the world of sports, legends aren't defined only by their victories, they're defined by their essence. Carlos Alcaraz is more than a champion. He's a reminder of why we fell in love with tennis in the first place. His story is proof that greatness doesn't have to come with arrogance, that youth can bring wisdom, and that joy can coexist with pressure. From the dusty courts of El Palmar to the royal lawns of Wimbledon, he has shown the world that passion, humility, and hard work can can rewrite destiny. Thank you for watching and celebrating the remarkable journey of Carlos Alcaraz, the young man who plays with a smile and competes with a lion's heart. If his story inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and spread the message of what true passion looks like. Because the future of tennis isn't coming. It's already here, wearing a smile and swinging with purpose.